Have you ever noticed that sometimes the greatest battles in your life begin with something incredibly small, something most people ignore, something as simple as your mouth? What if I told you that the miracle you've been praying for, the breakthrough you've been crying for, the doors you've been waiting for God to open might be connected to one instruction that heaven is giving you right now? Be silent. Yes, silence. Not weakness, not fear, not defeat. Silence can be one of the most powerful spiritual weapons God gives to his chosen ones. Because when God is preparing something massive in your life, the enemy's first mission is to make you speak too soon. Some of you watching this right now are not ordinary people. You are chosen. You have felt it in your spirit for years. You've wondered why your path has been harder than others, why you have been misunderstood, why people walked away, why doors closed. It's because God was training you. But right now there is a very specific instruction being released in the Spirit. Chosen ones, shut your mouth completely for the next 72 hours. Not because you are powerless, but because God is about to fight a battle you cannot win with words. The moment you learn when to speak and when to remain silent, you step into a level of spiritual authority that most people never reach. For the next 72 hours, heaven is watching your discipline. Angels are positioning, situations are shifting, and your silence may be the very key that unlocks the next season of your life. The three key truths you must understand today are: the first truth is that silence is often God's strategy before a miracle appears. The second truth is that speaking too soon can sabotage the blessings God is preparing. The third truth is that disciplined silence strengthens spiritual authority and releases divine intervention. When God gives an instruction that seems unusual, it is usually because he is about to do something supernatural. Throughout Scripture, we see moments where obedience to a strange command unlocked an impossible victory. The natural mind struggles with these moments because they don't follow human logic. But God's ways have never depended on human logic. They depend on obedience. And sometimes the greatest act of obedience is restraint. Sometimes it is the ability to hold back words that are ready to explode out of your mouth. In a world where everyone feels the need to respond, defend themselves, argue, explain, and prove their point, the chosen ones are trained differently. God teaches them the power of restraint. He teaches them that not every attack deserves a response. Not every accusation deserves a defense. Not every misunderstanding deserves an explanation, because some battles are designed specifically so that God alone receives the glory when the outcome changes. Silence is often God's strategy before a miracle appears. There are moments in your life where God intentionally removes your voice from the situation because he wants to reveal his power. Many people don't realize that one of the enemy's favorite traps is provoking you to speak prematurely. The enemy knows that if he can get you emotional enough, angry enough, frustrated enough, or fearful enough to start speaking recklessly, you may disrupt the timing of what God is doing behind the scenes. Words carry spiritual weight. They create atmosphere. They influence direction. And when they are released in the wrong moment, they can open doors that should have stayed closed. Think about how often people lose opportunities because they spoke out of anger. How often relationships collapse because someone refused to pause before responding. How many blessings were delayed because impatience pushed someone to say something they later regretted. Silence requires strength. Silence requires discipline. Silence requires trust in God's timing. When God tells the chosen ones to shut their mouth for 72 hours, it is not about suppressing your identity. It is about protecting the work that heaven is doing. Imagine a seed that has just been planted into the soil. That seed is invisible to the outside world. Nothing seems to be happening. If someone judged the process by what they can see, they might believe nothing is growing. But beneath the surface, life is forming. Roots are stretching. Transformation is happening in darkness before it becomes visible in the light. Your current season may feel like that hidden phase. People might assume nothing is happening in your life. Some may even mock your patience. But what they cannot see is the spiritual construction taking place beneath the surface. God often builds the strongest breakthroughs in silence. Silence protects divine strategy. When you speak too much about what God is doing, you invite opinions, doubts, jealousy, and spiritual resistance into the process. Not everyone around you has the capacity to understand what God placed in your spirit. Some people will project their limitations onto your calling. Others may try to discourage you because your growth threatens their comfort. That is why chosen ones are frequently guided into seasons where they are told to keep things private. Not every vision should be announced. Not every plan should be shared. Not every dream needs validation from people who did not receive the assignment God gave you. There is also a deeper spiritual dimension to silence. When you stop speaking, you begin listening more clearly. Many people say they want guidance from God, but their lives are filled with constant noise. Their minds are crowded with opinions, conversations, arguments, and distractions. Silence clears that space. Silence sharpens spiritual awareness. In the next 72 hours, if you practice intentional silence, you may begin to notice things you previously missed. You may sense patterns in situations around you. You may recognize the intentions behind certain people's behavior. You may hear guidance in your spirit that was previously drowned out by emotional reactions. Silence also exposes who truly supports you. When you stop explaining yourself and defending yourself, people reveal their true character. Those who respect you will remain patient. Those who secretly thrive on drama will become uncomfortable because they no longer receive the reaction they expected from you. And here is something powerful that many people overlook. When you refuse to respond to negativity, you remove the fuel that keeps conflict alive. Arguments require two participants. Drama survives on attention. When your mouth stays closed, many problems lose their momentum naturally. This is why disciplined silence is not weakness. It is strategic strength. It shows maturity. It demonstrates control over your emotions. And most importantly, it creates space for God to step into situations where human effort would only complicate things. Some of you watching right now are in situations where you feel the urge to explain everything. You want people to understand your side of the story. You want to defend your reputation. You want to correct misinformation that others are spreading about you. But God may be saying something unexpected in this moment. Let me handle it. When God becomes your defender, the outcome is far greater than anything you could accomplish with arguments. Human defense may convince a few people. Divine justice reveals truth to everyone at the right time. So if heaven is giving this instruction today, it may not be random. It may be preparation. The next 72 hours could be a testing ground for discipline, patience, and trust. And your silence might be the very thing that allows God's plan to unfold without interference. The second truth is that speaking too soon can sabotage the blessings God is preparing. Many people miss their breakthrough, not because God forgot them, not because the promise was false, and not because the timing of heaven was wrong. They miss it because they spoke at the wrong moment. Words can either build a bridge into your future or create a wall that blocks it. And the enemy understands this principle very well. That is why one of the most common spiritual attacks is provocation. The enemy pushes situations, pushes people, pushes misunderstandings, pushes accusations, all with one purpose: to get you to react with your mouth. You see, when God is preparing something powerful in your life, there is always a period where things look confusing. During that period, your emotions may feel intense. People might question you. Circumstances might seem unfair. And right there in that moment, when everything inside you wants to speak, explain, argue, or defend yourself, heaven may be saying something different: stay quiet. The reason is simple but profound. When you speak too soon, you may reveal what God is still developing. You may expose plans that are not yet ready. You may give information to people who are not assigned to your destiny. And sometimes your own words can create doubt that weakens your faith. Think about how often people ruin opportunities by talking too much. Someone receives an idea from God, and before it even begins to grow, they start telling everyone about it. Instead of protecting the vision, they expose it to opinions, criticism, jealousy, and negativity. Slowly, the excitement fades, the confidence fades, and what once felt like a powerful calling begins to feel uncertain. Not every blessing needs an announcement. Some blessings require incubation. Just like a seed buried in the soil, the early stages of God's work in your life are meant to grow quietly. Another danger of speaking too soon is emotional reaction. When people hurt you, misunderstand you, or accuse you unfairly, the natural response is to defend yourself immediately. Your mind starts forming arguments. Your heart wants justice. Your pride wants to correct the situation right away. But emotional words are rarely wise words. Words spoken in anger can destroy relationships that took years to build. Words spoken in frustration can damage opportunities that were about to open. Words spoken in fear can cancel the confidence God placed inside you. This is why disciplined silence is so powerful. Silence gives wisdom time to catch up with emotion. When you pause before speaking, you give God space to guide your response. You allow your thoughts to settle. You allow your spirit to rise above the immediate reaction. And many times, after a period of silence, you realize that the response you originally wanted to give would have made the situation worse. The chosen ones are often trained through situations where they must learn this lesson repeatedly. God allows moments where people misunderstand them, moments where accusations appear, moments where they are tempted to fight back with words. Not because God enjoys watching them struggle, but because He is building something stronger inside them. He is building emotional control. He is building wisdom. He is building spiritual authority. A person who cannot control their tongue cannot carry certain levels of influence. Power requires discipline. Leadership requires restraint. And God knows that if He releases certain blessings too early, before a person learns control over their words, those blessings could be destroyed by impulsive reactions. So sometimes God delays the breakthrough until the chosen one learns silence. And there is another deeper reason why speaking too soon can sabotage your blessing. When you constantly explain yourself to people, you start depending on their understanding instead of trusting God's plan. Many people exhaust themselves trying to make everyone understand their intentions, their decisions, their calling, their life path. They spend endless hours defending themselves, clarifying rumors, correcting opinions, and trying to control how others perceive them. But the truth is this: you cannot control every opinion. You cannot correct every rumor. You cannot convince every person. And trying to do so will drain your energy from the mission God actually gave you. Silence frees you from that burden. When you stop trying to control how everyone sees you, You begin focusing on what God actually assigned you to do. Instead of spending hours arguing with people who misunderstand you, you invest your energy into building the future God placed in your hands. And something interesting begins to happen when you stop speaking too soon. Over time, your actions start speaking louder than your explanations ever could. People watch. People observe. People notice consistency. And eventually, the truth reveals itself without you having to argue for it. There is also a spiritual law connected to patience. Many blessings require the right moment. God sees the full picture of time in ways we cannot understand. What feels late to you may actually be perfectly timed in the spiritual realm. But impatience often pushes people to act early. They reveal information early. They confront situations early. They react emotionally before God finishes preparing the outcome. And the moment they interfere with the process, complications appear. Imagine a chef preparing a meal that requires precise timing. If someone removes the food from the oven too early, the meal is ruined. It had the potential to become something amazing, but impatience interrupted the process. In the same way, God sometimes asks His chosen ones to remain quiet because He is still arranging pieces behind the scenes. Conversations are happening that you cannot hear. Doors are being prepared that you cannot see. People are being positioned who will play a role in your next season. Your silence protects the timing of these movements. The next 72 hours, if you truly practice closing your mouth and controlling your reactions, something powerful will happen inside you. You will begin to notice how many situations previously pulled you into unnecessary conversations. You will see how many people were waiting for your reaction. And when that reaction never comes, the dynamic changes. Some conflicts will dissolve naturally. Some people will reveal their intentions. Some situations will resolve themselves without your involvement. Most importantly, you will feel a new level of inner control. Instead of feeling like every external situation controls your emotions, you begin to realize that you control your response. And that realization is powerful. Because the moment you control your response, you control the direction of your life. Silence is not about being passive. It is about choosing the right moment to speak. It is about understanding that words are tools, and powerful tools must be used carefully. For 72 hours, heaven may be asking you to practice that discipline. Not forever, not as a lifestyle of fear, but as a training ground. A moment where you step back, observe more, react less, and trust God to move where your words might have complicated things. And when those 72 hours pass, you may discover that the breakthrough you were trying to force with explanations and arguments has already begun unfolding quietly. The third truth is that disciplined silence strengthens spiritual authority and releases divine intervention. There is a level of power that many believers never reach, not because God refuses to give it to them, but because it requires a level of self-control that most people are unwilling to practice. Spiritual authority does not grow in noise. It grows in discipline. It grows in patience. And very often, it grows in silence. When God begins preparing a chosen one for greater influence, one of the first things He trains is their mouth, because the mouth reveals what controls the heart. A person who speaks constantly without reflection often exposes their fears, their frustrations, their insecurities, and their impulses. But a person who has learned when to remain silent shows something different. They show control, they show wisdom, they show maturity. And in the spiritual realm, control creates authority. Many people assume authority comes from position, titles, or recognition. But true spiritual authority comes from alignment with God's discipline. When you learn to restrain your words, Especially in moments where emotions are high, something powerful begins to happen inside you. Your spirit becomes stronger than your reactions. This is where divine intervention often begins. Think about moments when conflict is rising. Someone criticizes you. Someone spreads rumors. Someone tries to provoke you. In that moment, the enemy expects a reaction. He expects anger, argument, retaliation, or explanation. Because once emotions explode, confusion enters the situation and the enemy gains influence. But when a chosen one remains silent, something unusual happens. The expected reaction never arrives. And when the reaction disappears, the conflict loses its fuel. This is where God often begins working in ways that surprise everyone. When you step back from the fight, God steps forward into it. When you stop trying to defend yourself with your own words, heaven begins arranging situations that reveal the truth without your effort. Divine intervention does not always look dramatic in the beginning. Sometimes it starts quietly. People begin noticing inconsistencies in accusations. Situations begin shifting in ways that expose hidden motives. Conversations happen behind the scenes that change people's understanding of the situation. But none of this could happen if you had already destroyed the atmosphere with emotional reactions. Silence keeps the atmosphere clear for God to work. Another powerful result of disciplined silence is clarity. When you are constantly speaking, reacting, and explaining, your mind stays crowded with noise. It becomes difficult to hear the subtle guidance that God often provides. But when you practice silence, your awareness sharpens. You begin observing more. You begin understanding people more deeply. You begin noticing patterns that were invisible before. During the next 72 hours, if you truly discipline yourself to speak less and react less, you may notice something interesting. Certain people who usually dominate conversations will reveal more about themselves. Without your reactions guiding the direction, they begin exposing their true thoughts and intentions. Silence can reveal truth faster than arguments. When people expect resistance and instead receive calm observation, they often continue speaking. And the more they speak, the more their true character becomes visible. You learn who respects you. You learn who secretly envies you. You learn who thrives on drama and who genuinely seeks peace. This awareness is part of spiritual growth. Chosen ones are not meant to move blindly through life. God trains them to observe carefully, to listen carefully, to respond wisely rather than impulsively. Silence sharpens these abilities. It also strengthens inner peace. Many people feel emotionally exhausted not because their problems are too big, but because they are involved in too many unnecessary conversations. They respond to every comment. They defend themselves against every opinion. They explain themselves to people who were never interested in understanding them. Over time, this constant defense drains energy. But when you practice silence, something refreshing begins to happen. You realize that many things do not actually require your response. Opinions lose their power when you stop reacting to them. Criticism becomes less threatening when you are no longer emotionally attached to correcting it. Your peace grows stronger than the noise around you. And this is where spiritual authority becomes visible. People start noticing that you are no longer easily provoked. Situations that once triggered emotional reactions no longer control your behavior. Instead of reacting immediately, you pause, you observe, you choose your response carefully. This level of control commands respect. Even those who disagree with you begin recognizing your composure. They realize that you are not easily manipulated by emotional pressure. And when people realize they cannot provoke you into chaos, many of them stop trying. Silence changes the dynamics of power. Instead of being pulled into every conflict, you begin standing above them. Instead of reacting to every challenge, you choose the battles that actually matter. Your words become fewer, but they become stronger. When you finally speak, people listen more carefully because they know you do not speak carelessly. This is one of the greatest transformations a chosen one can experience. Your voice becomes valuable because it is disciplined. Your words carry weight because they are intentional. Your presence becomes powerful because you are not controlled by emotion. And this is exactly why the next 72 hours can become a spiritual training ground. It may seem like a small instruction: close your mouth, speak less, react less. But within that simple instruction lies a powerful opportunity for growth. During these 72 hours, observe how many times you feel the urge to respond immediately. Notice how often your emotions push you toward explaining yourself or correcting someone. Each moment you choose silence instead of reaction is a moment where your spiritual discipline grows stronger. Each moment you pause instead of reacting is a moment where you allow God's space to work. And you may discover something surprising. Many of the situations you thought required your defense may resolve themselves. Many of the conflicts that once felt urgent may fade away. Some people who expected confrontation may become confused when it never comes. But within that quiet space, your peace grows, your clarity grows, your authority grows. And when the 72 hours end, you may find that something inside you has changed. You are no longer controlled by the need to respond to everything around you. You have discovered a new strength, the strength of disciplined silence. And from that strength, God can trust you with greater influence, greater responsibility, and greater blessings. The message today is simple but powerful. If you feel that instruction in your spirit to remain silent for the next 72 hours, do not ignore it. It may be preparation for something greater than you realize. Not every battle requires your words. Not every attack deserves your response. Not every misunderstanding needs your explanation. Sometimes the greatest victories come when you step back and allow God to move forward. So for the next 72 hours, practice the discipline of silence. Speak when necessary, but refuse to react emotionally. Observe more than you explain. Listen more than you argue. Trust that God sees every situation, even when you remain quiet. Because the chosen ones understand something that the world often forgets. When God is fighting your battles, silence is not weakness. Silence is trust, and trust opens the door for miracles.